Dr. Joseph Ladapo is a guy who's had an amazing week. He's just been confirmed as the Florida Surgeon General. The Democrats didn't like it. I believe they walked out. But he has been confirmed, and he's dealing with the FDA and the monoclonal antibody tests that will be closed after the FDA removes the emergency use authorization. They didn't even tell Florida. They haven't even communicated with them, beforehand. And I don't understand exactly why they would pull this, especially since, if there's 700,000 people that are getting it, anywhere between 1,000 and 5,000 maybe, could be getting Delta variant. But we don't know. It might be 50. But why would you pull a treatment? I've been to the doctor before, and they are like, I don't know. Let's just hit you with some antibiotics as well. I don't think that's it, but let's hit you with some antibiotics. Why would the government pull something off of the market and not let doctors decide? We have the good doctor on with us now, the Surgeon General of Florida. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you, Glenn. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Now, do I have the story right? First of all,
you have it. Yes, you basically have it right. So, in terms of the confirmation piece, it's kind of the first step, but we're getting there. And in terms of the FDA, you're correct. They made a decision that was rash. It was really obnoxious to patients. They sort of made the decision in the evening, and people found out the following morning that their appointments were canceled. Was that really necessary? So thousands of people were planning on coming in for appointments, and they literally found out that morning that that wasn't going to be a possibility. So it was really just a very obnoxious thing to do to Floridians and other people around the country that were scheduled for appointments.
Okay, so let me ask two questions. I think both fair, but in opposite directions. First question: the FDA only pulled 2, I think, out of the 3 monoclonal treatments. And they didn't ban the one that they say works against Omicron. So why wouldn't they ban the second or that last one if they were trying to do something evil?
Yeah, I don't know their motivations, but it was a very bad decision. So basically, in December, a few laboratory studies showed that the Regeneron monoclonal antibody and an Eli Lilly monoclonal antibody had reduced affinity for the Omicron variant, whereas a third monoclonal antibody, it's called sotrovimab, still seemed to have high affinity. So that was to give the FDA some credit, at least there was some basis. We've seen many decisions made during the pandemic for which there was absolutely no basis whatsoever for the decision. So fine. So that's what the laboratory studies show. But Glenn, the thing is, and it's not rocket science, is that what you see in a lab doesn't always correlate perfectly with what you see in patients.
So right? that's the other question in the other direction. If this was something that could be dangerous to people, and it was experimental, you first of all would not be shoving it down everybody's throat as they have. And if you wanted to pull it out because it was dangerous, and you'd say, look, we've approved this emergency, but it's not really that effective on this. We're going to pull it because it is dangerous to use it. But that's not what they're saying. So I go back to, antibiotics. Many times in my life, and I know this is bad for, super viruses, but many times in my life, doctors have said, you know what, I don't think it's this, but I'm just going to hit you with this just in case. If it's not dangerous, why pull it off the market? Why not let doctors say, you know what, give it a whirl?
Glenn, you're exactly right. I don't even know what to say. I mean, over this course of this pandemic, we've actually had evidence for treatments, fluvoxamine, inhaled budesonide. There's some evidence for ivermectin, even though there's a lot of debate about that. There's also evidence for hydroxychloroquine, even though there's a lot of debate about that. And if you care about patients, what you do is you allow doctors to make decisions and you collect data so that, you can help doctors make even better decisions. But instead, we've seen it just time and time again, this tendency to just want to say, no, you can't use this, or no, you can't use that. And no one who cares about patients thinks about decisions that way. I mean, it's the bottom line. What you're saying is exactly correct in terms of what happens when there's uncertainty, but your doctor thinks that there may be a benefit to treatment. And it's really heartbreaking. I mean, honestly, I don't know what the motivation is.
Well, I mean, they're either schizophrenic, they don't know what they're doing, or they have other motivation, because Merck has just received the emergency use authorization from the FDA for their treatment with the pills. What is it? Molnupiravir, whatever it is. And there's 2 rounds of trials now that show it has almost no difference in outcome for hospitalization for those on the placebo group. But they just said you can use that, but there's no real evidence that that works. So is this just total confusion? Or I don't understand.
Glenn, I mean, it's honestly, I just have to quit trying to even try and understand, honestly, because it's just so perplexing and vexing as a doctor. Just to even build on what you just said regarding the Merck product. So Merck publishes a single clinical trial with very shaky results in terms of this antiviral. You look at another medication called fluvoxamine.
Right.
It's a generic, right?
Yep.
No one's going to make $1 billion off of it. They publish, some researchers independently publish a clinical trial bigger than the Merck trial, higher quality than the Merck trial, and overall more effective than what the Merck trial shows. And, nothing, right? There's no leadership at the NIH saying that doctors should consider using that medication. I'm honestly, I think I would probably, have to get diagnosed with hypertension or something if I just tried to understand the rationale behind this. But they're not the kind of decisions that people make when they actually care about patients.
So that is the scary thing. And I think this is why conspiracy theories start. But we're so far beyond that. I mean, there's a difference between a conspiracy theory that is dangerous and just asking simple questions. And asking questions gets you banned. I mean, never before have I seen ever in America people saying you can't ask a question. You can't say what you believe, or they shut you down. Are you seeing, as a doctor, real problems with misinformation? To the extent to where we should be closing people down, shutting them up?
Oh, absolutely not, Glenn. I mean, and you're exactly right. It is the kind of thing that fuels theories. And, people label them as conspiracy theories to sort of be pejorative up toward the people who are just trying to wrap their minds around what's going on. But it's really just, it's just an extraordinarily terrible time for clinical science and for the scientific community in some very important ways. And this, just a very simple idea that asking questions is anti-science. It's like, come on, guys, there's a paradox in there waiting for you to discover. And it's to the detriment of every human being on this planet.